You weren't born to be silent. You were conditioned to be silent. By people who taught you to fear your own power. And the ones who taught you that? They weren't just careless. They were strategic. Let's start with the ugliest truth no one dares whisper. Disrespect, rejection, emotional games, they're not accidents. They are power moves. Weapons of psychological warfare used by people who saw your light and knew the only way to control you was to dim it. You've been trained to see this as normal. The boss who praises the fool and mocks the honest. The partner who keeps you guessing, keeps you proving. The friend who always needs you but is never there when you break. You were never in a relationship. You were in a battlefield disguised as connection. And now you're here. Tired. Frustrated. Confused about why the worst people rise. While you, with your heart, your honesty, your effort, are overlooked, disrespected, discarded. But I'll tell you why. And once you hear it, you'll never unsee it. Because this is not just about toxic people. This is about a sickness that runs through society like blood through veins. A sickness Nietzsche saw clearly, long before the world was ready to admit it. He wrote, "Everything the state says is a lie, and everything it has stolen." Nietzsche wasn't talking just about governments. He was talking about systems of false power. The kind that manipulates your emotions, rewards submission, and punishes individuality. Look deeper and you'll see it everywhere. The bully in school becomes the CEO. The liar becomes the leader. The spineless, praise-hungry crowd lifts them up, not despite their corruption but because of it. It's not that society doesn't know they're corrupt. It's that their corruption awakens something primal in the masses. A mix of fear, awe, and projection. You think you're the weak one because you feel. Because you're loyal. Because you believe in honesty. But that's not weakness. That's your untapped power. And those who manipulate, they see it. They sense the emotional gold buried beneath your self-doubt. And they play a game. A cold, ancient, psychological game. Trigger your emotions. Control your reactions. Feed you crumbs of approval, then vanish. Make you doubt yourself, until you serve them just to silence the storm inside. That storm, that's your battlefield. And it's time you start treating it like one. Let's get real. You're not just hurt. You're psychologically ambushed. You're not too sensitive. You've been trained to ignore your intuition. To smile while being slowly broken. You're not overreacting. You're reacting to years of micro-rejections, masked insults, and quiet manipulations that no one ever taught you how to see. Because society doesn't want you to see them. Because if you did, you'd stop obeying. But now, you're waking up. Psychologist Carl Jung warned us. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let's make it conscious. Let's dismantle the emotional traps that were set up to keep you small. Trap 1, emotional triggers. They hook you by your wounds. A sigh, a cold look, a passive comment. It spirals you. You think it's you. But it's your trauma reacting to familiar poison. Trap 2, trauma bonds. The more someone hurts you and then soothes you, the more addicted you become. It's the illusion of love masking psychological captivity. Trap 3, projection. Toxic people don't just lie, they paint you with their sins. They make you look crazy while they smile clean. They project their chaos onto your calm, and make the world believe it. But the most dangerous trap? Shadow suppression. Your shadow, the part of you that knows how to fight back, how to say no, how to protect your spirit, has been buried. Shame. Silenced. But Jung taught us. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You want freedom? Then you must walk into your shadow, and reclaim the parts of you that were forbidden. The rebel. The protector. The one who doesn't beg, doesn't shrink, doesn't play nice to survive. Because what's been done to you was not just abuse. It was a system. A psychological system built on exploiting the good-hearted and rewarding those who fake virtue and twist truth into theater. You were taught to fear being disliked. They were taught to use that fear against you. You were taught to stay silent when disrespected. They were taught that your silence is permission. You were taught to prove yourself. They were taught to give nothing and receive everything. It's not fair, but it is real. And this is the part they fear most. When you stop being confused and start seeing clearly. When the fog lifts. When you realize your emotional pain is not weakness, but proof that you feel deeply in a world gone numb. When you stop asking, why me? And start asking, what now? Because now you don't just know the pain. You know the system. You know the battlefield. And you're ready to become something they can't control. Emotionally sovereign. Mentally unshakable. Spiritually untouchable. But first, You must break the chains they wrapped around your mind. Because in part 2, we dismantle the mental programming. We burn the lies they fed you. And we rebuild your emotional core from the inside out. You've waited long enough. You've been quiet long enough. Now, it's your turn. Are you ready to take your power back? You weren't born with chains. You were taught to wear them, like jewelry. Guilt, shame, obligation, fear of being disliked. These are not emotions. They're invisible shackles, forged by those who couldn't control you by force. So they controlled you through feelings. And you never saw it coming. Because they didn't yell. They whispered. They made you overthink every word. They made you doubt your anger, question your worth, apologize for existing. And somehow, they made you feel like the problem. That's the first law of manipulation. Gaslight the target into destroying themselves. You were never praised for your strength. You were rewarded for your compliance. Think back. How many times did you bite your tongue just to keep the peace? How many apologies did you give when you were the one bleeding? And how many nights did you sit in silence? Because the pain of your truth might offend someone else's illusion? That's not peacekeeping. That's emotional captivity. And here's the brutal truth. Toxic people don't want peace. They want power without resistance. And they'll dress it up as love, respect, or just being honest. But beneath it all, it's just control. Every time. Let's break this down. There are 3 core traps they use to control your mind. Once you see them, you can never unsee them. Trap 1, guilt conditioning. This is the invisible leash. They train you to feel guilty anytime you assert yourself. You say no, and suddenly you're selfish. You set a boundary, and suddenly you're difficult. But here's the twist. Guilt only works on the people who care. They don't feel guilt. You do. Because you still have a conscience. And they weaponize that against you. Trap 2, the overthinking spiral. You start questioning your own mind. Was I too harsh? Am I being dramatic? Maybe it's all in my head. This is not self-awareness. It's programmed self-doubt. Because the more confused you are, the easier you are to control. Trap 3, the people-pleaser reflex. This is the most seductive trap. You think you're being kind. But what you're really doing is betraying yourself to keep the illusion intact. And the more you give, the more they take. Because toxic people don't honor your sacrifices. They exploit them. So how do you break these chains? You start by reclaiming the one power they fear most. Your emotional clarity. Let's rip through the fog and arm you with weapons they can't touch. Weapon 1, cognitive reframing. When they say, you're too much. Translate that as, I can't manipulate you easily. When they say, you're selfish. Translate it as, you're no longer prioritizing my agenda. Flip the narrative. You're not the villain in their story, you're the rebellion they can't control. Weapon 2, boundary setting without explanation. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. A real boundary doesn't come with a 3-page essay. It comes with silence, space, and self-respect. And if they throw a tantrum? Good. That's not a red flag. It's a confirmation that the boundary was necessary. Weapon 3, rejection detox. Rejection is not proof that something's wrong with you. It's a redirection away from manipulation toward your truth. Montaigne once said, a man who fears suffering is already suffering from what he fears. You've been fearing rejection like it's death. But what if I told you, rejection is freedom in disguise? The moment you stop fearing who walks away is the moment you attract only those who respect your power. Now lean in. There's a reason you keep going back to toxic situations, even when you know they're wrong. It's not weakness. It's trauma bonding. A trauma bond is when your nervous system links emotional chaos with love. So now, stability feels boring. And disrespect feels familiar. You're not addicted to them. You're addicted to the hope that maybe, this time, they'll change. But they won't. Because your healing threatens their control. Because the moment you wake up, they lose their kingdom. So stop trying to change them. Change your pattern. Here's what that looks like. You stop chasing closure. Because real closure doesn't come from them. It comes from the moment you realize their approval was never worth the pain it cost you. You stop begging to be understood. Because you finally understand yourself. You stop explaining why you're not coming back. Because you don't need to justify walking out of a fire to anyone still standing inside it. Let's root this in Stoic truth. Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. You think freedom means doing whatever you want. But real freedom is not reacting to every emotional trap they set. You can't control who betrays you. But you can control who gets a second chance. You can't control how they see you. But you can control how you see yourself. This is not just healing. It's warrior training. Because when you master emotional control, you become immune to guilt, to drama, to manipulation, to rejection. And they'll try harder. They'll test you. They'll throw the same bait, dressed in a new costume. But you won't flinch. Because now your nervous system doesn't crave chaos. It craves clarity. And peace is no longer a weakness. It's your shield. Here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, practice saying no without explanation. Cut one emotionally draining person from your life, or if you can't, go silent. Catch yourself when you overthink and say out loud, "This is not my voice. This is conditioning. I release it." You'll feel guilt. You'll feel fear. But those are just echoes of an old program. Let them scream. Let them squirm. You are not responsible for managing other people's feelings. Only your own alignment. This is the beginning of your inner revolution. You've unmasked their tactics. You've broken their spell. And now, you're no longer the player on their board. You are the architect of your own inner kingdom. And from this day forward, every emotion you reclaim, every toxic cycle you end, every no you say without guilt, is an act of psychological warfare against a system that was designed to keep you obedient. This is your exit. Not from people, but from their grip on your mind. And when you return in part 3, you won't just be healing, you'll be commanding. There's a moment in every battle where survival is no longer enough. You stop dodging bullets and start aiming back. You stop bleeding silently and start commanding your mind like a weapon. That moment is now. Because healing without power is incomplete. If you don't learn to rule your own thoughts, someone else will. If you don't control your emotions, the world will use them to control you. And that's how they win, not by strength but by seduction. They lure you with chaos. They hook you with triggers. They bait you with validation. And the moment you take it, you're theirs. But what if you could see it all? Every game, every tactic, every emotional landmine, exposed before it explodes. That's what this part is about. No more reacting. No more over-explaining. No more asking, why would they do this to me? From now on you don't ask why. You ask what's their angle. This is how you build psychological armor. Let's start with the mindset shift. Your emotions are not facts. They're signals. You've been trained to believe that if you feel something, it must be real. But manipulators use that against you. They provoke you, then blame you for reacting. So here's your first weapon. Strategic detachment. This isn't apathy. This is discipline. You stop giving instant access to your reactions. You pause. You observe. You decide what gets your energy. Because the most dangerous thing you can do to a manipulator is not react. Now lean in. This next principle is brutally powerful. Stop chasing validation. Every time you seek approval from someone who disrespects you, you're putting your self-worth up for auction. And they know it. That's why they keep pulling away, criticizing, ghosting, gaslighting. They're starving you of emotional oxygen. So you'll crawl back just to breathe again. But what happens when you stop begging for air and build lungs that feed off your own truth? That's psychological dominance. Nietzsche called it the will to power. Not power over others, but power over yourself. The power to walk away. The power to be disliked. The power to let them misunderstand you and not lose sleep over it. Here's the dark reality. Most people don't want your authenticity. They want your obedience. They don't want your truth. They want your submission wrapped in a smile. And when you stop performing, when you strip off the mask, they get uncomfortable. Because now, they're exposed too. But you're not here to make others comfortable. You're here to reclaim your mind. So here's how. Technique 1. Pattern interrupts. Whenever someone tries to provoke you, pause. You don't match their energy. You don't explain. You don't defend. You shift the dynamic. They say, "You've changed." You say, "I outgrew the role you assigned me." They say, "You're being dramatic." You say, "I'm no longer available for chaos." You break the pattern. And when the pattern breaks, their control breaks with it. Technique 2. Mirror defense. Most toxic people don't hate you. They hate what you reflect, their own insecurities. So instead of reacting to their projections, hold up a mirror. They say, "You're selfish." You respond, "Is that how you feel when people stop meeting your needs first?" They say, "You're cold." You say, "Or maybe I just stopped playing the emotional puppet." You reflect, not absorb. You hold your frame. And suddenly, they have no script. Technique 3. The silence weapon. You don't have to explain silence. You don't have to announce distance. You just become it. Because silence cuts deeper than any argument. It says, I've analyzed you. I've outgrown you. And I owe you nothing. It's the language of those who have nothing left to prove. Now let's talk about mental sovereignty. You've been trained to overanalyze, overthink, overfunction. You try to fix everything, even when it's not your mess. That ends now. From today, your new mantra is simple. If it costs me my peace, it's too expensive. You don't owe anyone closure, kindness, or composure when they violate your reality. Machiavelli once said, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." Translated for the modern mind, be respected, even if they don't like you. Because if people can disrespect you and still access you, they will never take your power seriously. Now this will hurt, but it's necessary. Sometimes the people you love most are the very architects of your mental chaos. Family, friends, partners. They may mean well, but if their presence makes you doubt yourself, shrink, over-explain, that's not love. That's mental erosion. Loyalty to your mind must come before loyalty to tradition. You don't need to cut them off, but you do need to cut off access to your psyche. Create emotional firewalls. Give them less data. Protect your inner code. Because here's the final truth. Your mind is a battlefield. And every day someone's trying to plant doubt, shame, guilt, fear. But once you become the commander, once you set the tone, control the triggers, master the pause, they lose access. Not because you built walls, but because you built altitude. And toxic people can't breathe at your level. Let me leave you with this. You don't have to raise your voice. You just have to raise your standard. You don't have to expose their lies. Just stop participating in them. You don't have to prove your worth. You just have to stop selling it for scraps of validation. Because when your mind becomes a fortress, they stop trying to break in and start fearing what you've become. In the final part, we go beyond healing, beyond resistance, into rebirth. Not just who you were before the manipulation, but who you were always meant to be. This is the moment you've been fighting for. The moment when scars no longer define you, when pain no longer controls you, when the toxic voices no longer echo inside your head. This is your rebirth. Not just healing, but rising. Not just surviving, but dominating your inner world. Not just reclaiming power, but becoming unshakable. You see, most people think freedom means escaping toxicity. They believe healing means fixing wounds. But Nietzsche showed us something far darker and far more liberating. True freedom is becoming the storm itself. Not running from the storm, but embodying its relentless force. Corrupt leaders rise because they embody a storm. A will that refuses to break no matter how much darkness surrounds them. They command fear and worship because they radiate unshakable power. Even when it's twisted, even when it's cruel. But you don't need to become corrupt to become powerful. You only need to awaken the storm inside you. The storm that no one can control. The storm that no one can silence. The storm that lives beyond their toxicity. Think about this. Every moment you spent doubting yourself, shrinking, apologizing, was a moment stolen by their corruption. Now you get it back. You become the force that corrupt systems fear, the unbreakable mind, the indomitable spirit, the one who walks through fire and comes out refined, not broken. But how? You synthesize everything you've learned, every brutal truth, every psychological weapon, every ancient philosophy. From Nietzsche, you take the will to power, the relentless drive to grow beyond weakness, beyond manipulation, beyond betrayal. From Jung, you integrate your shadow, the parts of you that were scared, angry, or broken, and transform them into strength. From Montaigne, you learn the art of self-responsibility, owning your story without excuses or blame. From Machiavelli, you master strategy, knowing when to fight, when to detach, and when to disappear like a ghost. From Stoicism, you cultivate equanimity, the calm in the eye of every emotional storm. These are not just ideas, they are your rebirth code. Now look inside. Who are you when no one is watching? Who are you beyond the masks, beyond the scars, beyond the toxic games? That version of you, the true you, is not fragile. It's forged in fire. It's tempered by betrayal. It's sharpened by every wound you survived. And here's the most dangerous truth of all. You don't owe your past pain an explanation. You don't owe toxic people a second chance. You don't owe anyone a reason for your transformation. You simply become. Become the energy no one can steal. Become the presence that commands respect without demanding it. Become the force that corrupt leaders fear, because you are proof that power doesn't require cruelty. This rebirth is not a destination. It's a daily ritual. A conscious choice to refuse old patterns. A relentless commitment to your own sovereignty. So ask yourself, are you ready to stop being their victim? Are you ready to stop playing their game? Are you ready to become the storm they never saw coming? Because that's the promise of rebirth. The promise that your power is waiting, quiet, patient, undefeated, inside you. And remember this: when you rise, others will try to pull you down. The corrupt will whisper, gaslight, and sabotage. They will try to lure you back into the chaos. But now you have the armor, the wisdom, the fire. You stand untouchable. You are not just surviving corruption. You are outgrowing it. You are rewriting the rules. You are the dark truth they never wanted you to discover. So go forward now with this fierce knowledge. You are unshakable. You are unstoppable. You are the storm and the calm after it. This is your rebirth, and nothing can ever take it away. When you live beyond toxicity, you don't just reclaim your power, you become a force that transforms the world around you. The worship of corrupt leaders will fade when more souls rise like you, strong, sovereign, free. This is your call to action. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Right now. Rise. Own your power. Become the storm. And never look back. If this truth stirred something inside you, something fierce and alive, then you've already begun your transformation. Keep walking. Keep fighting. Keep becoming. Because the world needs more warriors of light, who understand the darkness better than anyone,